so everybody, this is exciting. This is Christy with Planted Places, and there's Mindy of VermisTerra. Hey, Mindy.
Oh, hey.
Hey, we did
Finally,
it.
we got it working.
Oh man, we're like trying to do it on Facebook. I'm like, this is why people don't go live on Facebook because it's really hard over there. Or maybe they do, we just don't. Anyways, Instagram's much easier.
Yes.
So I am excited to be doing this because this has been something that we have been talking about for a couple of years, I feel like, ever since I discovered you. And then, yeah. So everybody, we are excited to announce Pura Terra. This is a brand new organic living soil and we've got, this is a 4-quart size, and I got a 10-quart behind me. And we're going to talk about some of your cool products, your Vitality and your earthworm casting tea. But hey, listen, what I wanted to do more than anything, Mindy, is I wanted to get us on so we could talk. Here it is spring. This is the time people are starting to plant tomatoes, peppers, everything. And just starting to grow food and getting flowers into their gardens. And soil is the most important thing. And this is what my mission for this company is so much about. And this is why I love it when I met you, because that's exactly what you guys believe as well. So I think let's kind of get right into it. And, today I think what we're going to talk about is talking about the importance of rebuilding your soil ecosystem. And what does that even mean? What is the soil biome? What does that whole thing even mean? And why our soil really focuses on this? So time to jump in. Mindy, why don't you just really quick tell people who you are? And VermisTerra, yeah.
So it's such a pleasure to work with Christy and Planted Places because we have the same mission and the same perspective of wanting to offer the highest nutrition and a healthy way to grow and garden, and that's good for the planet and good for the people and healthy for us too. So my family started, we're 3rd-generation farmers. We started as vegetable farmers from Taiwan. And so I grew up on the farm watching them grow Asian vegetables in the 80s. And gradually they learned through a process of mistakes, the harm in using some certain chemicals and pesticides. And that was through that trial and error that we discovered nature knows better, and nature in terms of microbials and the absorption abilities of building healthy soil. And so now we've been farming earthworms. So the little red wigglers that you find in your garden is a sign of healthy soil. And we have been raising earthworms for, I think, 17 years now.
Unbelievable.
And we supply them to farms, nurseries, greenhouses, soil mixers, wineries, botanical gardens, and zoos that house endangered species. So this is a healthy, natural soil amendment and booster. It's just topsoil. And so now we've created amendments. We have liquid ones, we have dry ones, and now we've created a potting soil mix specially for Planted Places and their beautiful setups.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. And I think that let's kind of dive right into that. I mean, one of the things we decided to do is this is all about, like you said, I mean, healthy soil, healthy plants, healthy people. And we need to be simple. Let's go back to nature. And so one of the things we talked about when we made the soil is 3 simple ingredients. And that's really all it needs to be. And so what I want to do is dive into probably the most important ingredient in there. Well, it's hard to say that, right? But it's organic worm castings premium from you, organic biochar, and organic coconut coir. And, let's talk real quick about the worm castings. And part of, just to back up for a second, I did a series of blogs, and if you guys go to our website, planetplaces.com, and you go to the Pura Terra soil link, you'll see there's a number of blogs that I created, articles, where I really dive deep into kind of the science behind this and why we're doing this for people who really care about this and really want to understand. And others are like, great, I'll just do it. But others really want to dive deep. And, it starts out with, let's not feed our gardens junk food. Let's not feed the soil junk food. And that's kind of what we've been doing. And so let's talk about that a little bit.
Before we talk about what's in this perfect mix that we've created, is it okay if we talk about some of the mistakes and
absolutely
misinformation that's out there?
Yes.
That the internet and YouTube and influencers are pushing a lot of do-it-yourself raw materials. And yes, in nature, you can create your own soil, but it takes a lot of time. It takes actually much more time for it to be stable and safe for the plant to grow than most people think. And we're not here to badmouth how other people are doing it, but some of the information where they're saying, oh, just bury your food scraps straight into the soil, that actually can cause a lot of problems. And you don't see the problems right away. It happens in 2 or 3 years, but people don't realize that chemistry wise and what's happening in the nutrient cycle. This is
Yep.
like a scientific thing, just like hydrogen, nitrogen, all of them, there's cycles in the planet. And it can actually hurt your plant by causing it stress and attracting pests too. So it's very
Yes.
fascinating. What's happening is that we're told to put a lot of raw materials. So things that are not completely broken down yet, like compost or manures. And a lot of these things, in our mind, we think a plant is like us. Like,
Yeah.
let me get a menu. I need to eat, all these different kind of amendments and fertilizers. But actually, all they really need for photosynthesis that you take in biology is sunlight, hydrogen, and carbon. Okay. And the
Mhm.
carbon, we're all made of carbon, and all living organic material is made of carbon. So it takes time for it to break down. And the key for those things to break down is microbes. So
Yes.
that's actually how we found each other, is your story with the gut health. And our family also had health scares and deaths from cancer, all having to stem from nutrition and chemicals in the soil, and our body not getting the nutrients that we need. So it's that's off topic, but
Well,
that's
and it's
really, yeah.
fascinating, that link between kind of people think your gut biome, but also the soil biome. And that is kind of what is happening. And I think what you're alluding to is when we're feeding our gardens junk food, I like to call it junk food, but that's a lot of the synthetic fertilizers. And, we all know the Miracle Grow, like the whole, what we've kind of grown up doing. And in a sense, what's happening is we're doing things where we're kind of locking up the biology that's in
Mhm,
that soil. So
mhm.
your roots, the soil roots cannot get to those nutrients. And do you want to talk to that a little bit? Kind of what
Yeah.
does it mean when you hear nitrogen lockdown and things like that?
So yeah, there's a lot of different side effects that happen, and each one we can go into for 30 minutes, but I'll just generally talk about them.
Hmm.
And basically, when you give the plants chemical fertilizers, you're spoon feeding them um, nutrients that are not made by the planet. Like, I mean, it's actually made from gas, like methane. So
Yeah.
it's a side effect, it's a side product. And what happens is when you put too much of it, it's carried by salt. So that salt builds up in the soil. Same
Hmm.
thing if you're using water that has some minerals, like hard water or well water. Any of those type of things will build up, and the minerals will sit in the soil. And then over time, that will mess with the pH. It will make the nutrients not available to the plant. So when we say our products are bioavailable, they're in a form with microbial help and enzymes and digestion that the plant can immediately receive and absorb. So when you use too much of the raw materials I was talking about, what you can see is the roots will get burned. You'll have pH swings. And when the pH is wrong, even if the nutrients are in the soil, the plant can't see it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The
basically, if the
roots
pH
can't
is high
access it.
or low, it can't access it. And
Yeah.
so what's amazing is beneficial microbes and good fungi and bacteria in your soil when it's alive, they buffer it and they make everything available and everything work harmoniously, because that's just how nature intended it to be. And
Yes.
another thing is the raw material has a lot of fresh carbon that's not available yet, and it needs to decompose and break down. And as it's doing that, in everyone that's done composting knows there's a C/N ratio. It's a ratio of how much carbon and how much nitrogen is needed for it to break down.
Hmm.
And if you're breaking down your carbon in the little container, it's going to need nitrogen from somewhere, and it's going to pull it from the leaf. It's going to pull it from the plant. And that's where you'll see stunted growth. If you have any sort of potting mix that has too much woody material, it'll be stunted, they'll be stressed out. You'll have roots rotting because like all the acids and things are breaking down and rotting inside. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away. Most times it happens after a year. You just buy a beautiful house plant from the store and you're babying it. You're like, oh, the nursery gave it such good food, right? And I've done this. I've done this where I've taken it home and I just left it there. And later on, suddenly it starts to have deficiencies, and suddenly it's got pests, and no other plants have it, but just this one, and
Yeah.
it's because it's weak. And when
Hmm.
a plant is weak and there's crazy stuff happening in the soil that's not supposed to be happening in a container, then it's not going to be able to fight off the bad guys. It's not going to be able to fight off pathogens, and it's going to attract
Yeah.
problems. Now, if you
Yeah.
grow in the ground, it's more forgiving because the soil has, the roots can grow to places where there's not hot spots. But in a container, it's very sensitive. And so it's very important to use something stable.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good, I know you didn't probably mean to do this, but a good segue into like the three ingredients that we chose for the Pura Terra mix
Yes.
is
Yes.
because we're really trying to optimize for the small containers. You can absolutely use that in garden beds, not a problem, like you just mentioned, but it's also kind of optimized for that because of the biochar and the coconut coir that are in there. And but before we jump into those ingredients, I would love for you to talk about just the importance of worm castings. And one of the things I think is great about the soil blend is we're using kind of upwards to 20%. I want to think even more. I don't want to promise that though, but of the organic worm castings in this blend. And that really is, after doing some research, probably the highest, kind of percentage of worm castings, premium organic worm castings in a soil blend on the market, which is really impressive. It's one reason why this stuff is like black gold. It's amazing. In fact, I have a video that I have got to post. I'm just going to send it to you, where we had a really hot day in California, like 90 or something in February. It was crazy. And all on my planted wall behind me there, the plants that were in a different soil were just dying. They were like, they were not doing good. Whereas the stuff that was in the VermisTerra soil, the Pura Terra, was just happy, not stressed, just sitting there. And they were also seedlings, which I thought was amazing because those are very sensitive plants, right? And yeah, it's so kind of just right there talks to it. But talk a little bit real quick about your black gold worm castings, your unique farming process, because I think it's one reason why it's so premium.
Okay, so you guys can probably see videos and pictures of our farm. We raise earthworms and we collect their poop, and that is black gold for any gardener that knows. It is, compared to all other manures that you can use as soil amendment, it's neutral, meaning it does not burn plants. Unlike cow and chicken manure, those are hot. They can, if you put too much, you'll burn your plants. But earthworm castings, you can grow straight in it. In fact, it has a very high plant hormones, so you can start seeds straight in it. It's that gentle. And everything's been pre-digested in the earthworm's gut. And when they digest, they're a mucous membrane material, but they will inject a bunch of calcium. So it's a bioavailable calcium, which is needed for cell walls and growing. And what's magnificent about earthworm castings, it's like a complete food, and it's fully balanced and available. Like, you don't have to wait for it to break down. The plant can grab it right away, which is why you usually will see your plants perk up when you start to give them castings, and you'll see a lot more fertility, like more flowers, more leaf growth, and just everything is available where it doesn't have to wait for it to break down and get stressed out. So we do a special thing where we compost the food first for them, and then we feed it to the worms and we give them time to eat it, and then we harvest their castings and we allow it to break down over time. And so you get a very pure concentrate castings. We don't add any green waste, we don't add compost, we don't add filler. It's pure castings you're getting, and there's a lot less water weight. One thing you'll notice when you have castings at your house, or if you buy castings, a lot of times it's very wet and sticky. Ours is not that way. It's you're getting more castings and less water, so it's a lot easier to spread.
Yeah, higher concentration. It's wonderful. And, it's also too, I mean, in fact, we won't go into it now because it probably does get too scientific-y. I just made up a word. And that is, if you go to the Pura Terra, if you go to planetplaces.com and you go to our Pura Terra soil page, you will see the blogs where we talk about it. But what is really magnificent too is there's specific enzymes that are in that process, the process of the worm castings being formed, and that really also help with that bioavailability of the nutrients in the soil. And so we kind of go into some of that stuff, which is super interesting. Yeah.
So yes, it's like, it's not just all the multivitamins that the plant needs. There's minerals, there's trace elements, and then there's probiotics. So there's good bacteria and fungi, which is needed for the whole ecosystem and for everything to work together. So this is how nature intended to feed plants. This is how forests and nature does it, is through earthworms, is they eat and break down any leaf material, any food waste that's on the surface, and then they feed it to the plants. And the microbes actually have this exchange in the root zone where they like go and they collect, like bees, they collect all the nutrients, and then they feed it to the roots and they exchange it for sugars. So this is how nature intended plants to grow. And same thing with our bodies. If you don't have good bacteria and probiotics, and the gut health isn't there, even if you eat food, it's not going to absorb. You're
Absorb
just
it.
going to have like, IBS, like constipation, all kinds of issues. And the
Yeah.
food's there,
Yeah.
but you're starving and
You
you
can't get
shouldn't.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you have a
Absolutely.
strong gut and you can absorb well, then by research has shown that your immune system is a lot stronger too. Yeah, it's
Excellent. And
really
that's what I
fascinating.
think is good is that you just described too, is your farming process is we're kind of accelerating that whole, what you just
Yes.
described happens in nature. You're accelerating
Yes.
for people. So that's what we're doing with our soil blend. And then what's really cool too is that biochar, that organic biochar that we're putting in there, that is really the surface area. So it's amplifying the surface area, which is why it's really important and it's optimized for small container growing because your biochar, a handful of biochar has the same kind of amplitude of like multiple football fields. I mean, in terms of what it's doing with the surface area. So on a molecular level, what does that mean? That means there's all these little nooks and crannies for these microbes to be hanging out.
Yes.
And just kind of amplifying what is there as they increase in number and such. So it rebuilds over time is kind of how I understand it all working together. Please, Mindy,
Yes.
add to that.
Well,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
described it really well, and biochar has become more and more popular and people are aware of what it is nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But it is like a forever carbon, and
Yes.
it's very coarse, and so the microbes can live in there, and that just helps them to be more active and stick around. And when you have a very high organic matter and a lot of living microorganisms in your soil, it will hold water and it will hold nutrients. If you don't have microbes, then the nutrients will just wash away. They'll leach away when it rains or if you water too much. So it's so important to have microbes because they're the ones that are there holding them on, holding to everything so that it's available when it needs it.
When it
And
needs it. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. That
And so
is.
the three ingredients that we were talking about earlier, they are earthworm castings. Okay, so our
Mhm.
premium earthworm castings, and that is a topsoil with all the vitamins and nutrients the plant needs for the season. And then and it's at a 20% rate. So usually when you buy a soil mix, they might say there's earthworm castings, but there's no indication of how much. And it's usually going to be 1 or 2% or less
Right.
because
Yeah.
earthworm castings are like the primo. Like basically,
They're
if
expensive.
you, yeah, it's expensive.
Yes.
So say
Yeah.
we get like a truckload,
Mm-hmm.
like an entire semi of green waste, like mulch,
Yep.
and that has to be composted and it breaks down into compost, and that's whatever's usable is maybe like 10 pallets, 10 like tons of
Yes.
compost, and the compost is like $60 a ton. Okay, and then you break that down and then let the worms eat it, and then it turns into 1 or 2 pallets of earthworm castings, and each
And so
earthworm
you're
casting
going. Oh,
ton is like 600 or more dollars, and it's
yeah.
that powerful. Like you can use a small amount of it and mix it with other soils and grow better. But if you don't have it, then you don't have that Kickstarter. So
Mhm.
biochar has to be with castings to have the microbial activity in life. When you
Yep.
make compost teas, you need earthworm castings. A lot of nurseries, when they transplant plant roots, the earthworm castings will prevent root rot and prevent transplant shock. So if they have like a plant they need a baby or that's like very profitable, they always gonna add
Give
castings
it.
to it to like guarantee it doesn't get sick. Yeah, so it's
Yes.
really fascinating, but this is just nature. We're just taking nature and doing it for you so that you don't have to have all the problems doing it on your in
Yeah,
your
and I think,
backyard.
yeah, no, and I think that talks a lot to like what Planet Places is trying to do. We're really trying to make it easy for people to garden organically, right? And whether that's growing food or just having beautiful gardens in your backyard, it's important because soil causes so many of the issues for people, and they don't know, right? And they're throwing the miracle grow, they're doing the things, right? And it's cost a lot of money and time, right? So
And it's
let's,
so
yeah,
sad when
yeah,
you get like a precious baby plant that you
yeah.
loved and then it dies on you and you're like, "Oh, I'm a bad
What did I
gardener." But
do? Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not. It's not your fault. And that's how I was
yeah,
thinking I need to make videos like, "It's not your fault.
yeah, yeah.
You just had like bad soil or you just bought the wrong fertilizer. You didn't know. You didn't know any
Right.
better.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Well, and
So
then
we're
that
here to
third,
help you.
yeah, no, yeah, true. And
Give
then
you a green
see
thumb.
that third ingredient, coconut core. So that
Yes.
that and and one thing that we're not saying, which is so obvious, we kind of mentioned at the beginning, is sustainability, right? Like so using the biochar, using the organic worm castings, using the coconut core, this is a very sustainable and regenerative way to grow. So
Yes.
what is the stat? Coconut core holds up to 10 times its weight in water. So that
Yeah.
combined with the biochar, you are, some studies show up to the 40% more water retention. So you can imagine what that is doing for people's water bill when you're out there in the, but that also talks to what I mentioned earlier about the really hot day And the plants that did not have that soil just suffering, whereas the Pura Terra soil was just happy as can be. So, yeah, which talks to that. But also, too, most soils out there are going to have perlite and peat moss. And those are not. I mean, perlite. Simple. I mean, as you know how I feel about perlite. I mean, these white little sponges in your in your soil that just look bad, but they're also not a very sustainable. Obviously, in terms of how they manufacture those are not, it's not a sustainable practice. And peat moss, of course, is disturbing wetlands. So, but one thing I do want to say about the sustainable growing is the biochar and the carbon sequestering. And that's something I think we kind of touched on super lightly, but I don't want to leave this conversation without saying the importance of that. So like you can literally garden and know that you're doing good things for the planet. So when you use biochar, you're locking in carbon for thousands of years. So and I have a blog where I talk about this as well, which is this whole concept of, excuse me, of kind of light carbon cycles, and then kind of I forget the word I'm going to use, but I'm going to call it just long-term carbon cycles, where over a period of 3 to 5 years, the carbon in your soil will kind of be released again, and then it gets absorbed and it's released. Whereas when you're using biochar, it's really locking it in. So I like to call it climate champion. I mean, you really are doing good things for the planet and
Yeah,
you're making a difference, people.
it is. And it's
Yeah,
making it,
yeah,
gardening more enjoyable too.
yeah,
I
exactly.
did want to point out that the coco coir we use, coco
Hmm.
coir has a bad rep because it's made from coconut husks, and so there are certain places that they don't rinse it, and so it will have a lot of salt in it from the ocean or whatever wherever they're
Yeah, where it came
processing it.
from.
But the ones that we use is rinsed, so the EC, the salt salinity, is low, meaning it's not going to
Hmm.
hurt your plants. And what it is it's a fiber. It is a carbon as well, but it is not wood. And the problem with wood chips and sawdust is that there's a lot of fat lipids in it, and when that breaks down, it causes problems in the soil,
Hmm.
protein issues. So the good thing is this is a soilless mix, but as it breaks down, it turns into soil. So all three of them, the castings, biochar, and carbon of coco coir, they are all a stable carbon. So meaning they can grow things, but they're not going to cause any side effects, no stress, no pH swings, no problems. And so it's a forever soil actually. So if you use other cheaper brands and you keep adding chemical fertilizers, it'll start to get compact and harden. Have you seen like it looks
Hmm.
like a rock in your soil, and that's because it's all stuck together from compaction. But that's not what's going to happen with our soil. It stays loose, it stays airy, and it retains water, but it holds the moisture. It doesn't log it down, and it won't have root rot. I think that's a big worry that people are like, but there's no perlite. You actually don't need perlite unless
Yeah.
you're growing chemically. Then you need kind of like that artificial spacing. But in nature, uh, if the soil is coarse from the castings and the biochar and broken down fibers, it will be able to breathe. It's not going to
Hmm.
have that issue, and then the microbes will protect it from root rot. It's
Excellent. I
it's
love
really
that.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is amazing. So, Elizabeth, before we drop off, let's give a couple tips because it's the time of the year, and this is when I know just because people are buying them like crazy on our website right now, but the tomatoes and the peppers and just all of these summer fruiting plants, this is when you start transplanting them. They start becoming available in April, and you plant them, and then you're going to harvest them right later in the summer, anywhere from 60 to 90 days, depending on the variety. But people always ask because, fruiting plants are heavy feeders. And so they'll ask, well, is Pura Terra, like, can that, it does have bioavailable and all the nutrients, perfect for flowers, perfect for growing leafy greens, herbs,
Yes.
lettuce and such. But what about fruiting plants? So what do we do? What do we need to do in addition, if at all, if you want to talk to that? Because I know you've got some
Okay.
great advice
So
there.
there's not really any like right or wrong way, and a lot of it
Mhm.
depends on the type of soil you have. And I'm guessing you're talking about some people grow trees in the ground, they have flower bushes, they'll have um like berries and so forth. The earthworm castings, tea, and vitality that we sell, they are good for all kinds of plants. So whether
Mhm.
they be like an ornamental plant, it's going to help it grow more like new baby leaves because now it's not stressed out.
Yeah.
You're going to see way more flowers, even on plants
Yes.
that haven't had flowers for a long time. Or if you've had a tree that hasn't produced in a long time, every week I get the testimony saying like, "Oh my gosh, I used your stuff and now I have more fruit than I can give away." And so for heavy feeders, it's okay to use the fertilizers you still have at home. Just cut back. when you're using our earthworm casting tea, it is going to help everything break down and release and absorb better so that there's no like locked up nutrients like we were talking about before. But when you use it, then you don't need as much other fertilizers. You can use only 50% and you'll still get better results than if you just use that by itself. Does that make sense? It's because there's enzymes in here. And
Mhm.
we recently did a lab test and found there's fulvic acid. It's an organic type of acid where think of it like shuttles or taxis. So they
Mhm.
will go and they'll grab like a nutrient, like a nitrogen or element that you need, and then they will deliver it into the root zone. So, and it doesn't matter what your pH problems is. So if you have bad soil, plants that are like stressed or like not growing or not
Just
producing,
depleted, right?
yeah,
Soil that
it's
has, yes,
depleted.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Using these together, you're going to see everything just liven up and de-stress and be able to produce again. And that's what it needs. Like if a plant is stressed out and it's dealing with um, tiny insects in the bark, like puncturing its roots, it's not going to be able to uptake. It's not going to be able to breathe. It's like in survival mode. And
Yeah.
what happens is when you give it this like luxurious, like wholesome, think of it like kombucha. This is kombucha. It's like a soil conditioner. It's like microbes.
Yep.
And then this is vitality. This is pure, like energizing, like smoothie, protein
So
shake.
is a way to think about this, like I'm thinking about like, so we got the Pura Terra, right? And it's got your organic worm casting, it's got the biochar, it's got the coconut core. So this is, you're putting your plant in there. And then the idea is like, if it's a tomato plant, you're putting that
Mhm.
in there, but then it's a heavy feeder, right? And so
Yeah.
what I love about what you've said too, is like with the vitality, right? You are kind of giving it almost instant available,
Yes.
it's helping with any kind of transplant. It's also just helping it start to eat because it
Yes.
need
It
that's, I
can
mean,
eat it
I'm
right
trying to
away.
do, I'm trying to give like a
Like
layman term here. Yes.
I can't say I guarantee this, but like I will, if you put enough of it, you will see new growth in 3 days to like 1 or 2 weeks, and
Yes.
that's very fast for plants. And it's basically this is 30 pounds of castings, and castings is equivalent to, I don't know,
Concentrated.
like
Yeah.
like a truckload of compost. So yes, I'm not saying compost is bad, but I'm saying like it takes time to see the
Yeah.
benefits.
Yeah.
And during the breakdown, a lot of problems happen that are not supposed to happen under the soil. They're supposed to happen on the surface. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why once you mix it into where the roots are, now you're getting, you're hurting your plant.
Yeah.
And so back to your question about heavy feeders, you can still feed them the soil amendments like bone meal, kelp, whatever you have in your garden shed, but you don't need as much. But if you want
Yeah.
to just keep it simple, you could just use Vitality, every 2 weeks and just like use a capful into your watering tower. Or I have like a
Mm-hmm.
watering can, or I'll just mix it into this and go around the house and water with a gallon. Or if you want,
Yes.
you could just, it comes with a little squirt bottle like
Mm-hmm.
this. So you can just like put a couple squirts into your little watering can and you can't overdo it. You don't need a lot of it
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
so concentrated, so bioavailable, but you will see new growth and you will see your plants get perky and happy.
I love it. Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
like I've got the wall behind me here, and that's for like, we're using our Pure Terra soil, and then yeah, that vitality, especially in the summer where you've
Hmm.
got, and springs, like growth is taken off. It's warming up. Soil microbes are like they're active, right? And so it's really good to kind of put a little bit of that vitality in there as well to kind of help
Yeah.
things get moving. So yeah, yeah.
If
Excellent.
if I just thought of something else I wanted to
Okay.
add is
Yeah.
the nutritional value. So
Mhm.
when plants get the minerals and elements and you are what you eat
Of
basically.
course. Yes, of
If you
course.
get
Yeah.
good nutrients and it's
Yeah.
not the junk food that you're saying that's all salt based and just like NPK only, you're getting everything that your body is craving.
Mm-hmm.
um, what they found is that plants have a higher sugars, like it's called bricks. So they can crush the leaves or crush the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Soda machines use this. Wineries and juices, they all like measure the amount of bricks, and that's how much natural sugars is in it and how much
Okay.
minerals. And they found that the higher the bricks, the better the flavor and the more nutritional content there is, and the longer shelf life. So when like when you grow vegetables in your tower,
Yeah.
and when you harvest it, you can keep it for a month and
Yep.
then it's still fresh. But when you
Yes.
buy cilantro from the supermarket, it's
Yeah.
rotten like in three, in 4 days.
Right.
And
Right.
that's because of what they feed it. Like if you have the minerals and the nutritional content, then the tissues are going to be stronger and it's healthier for your body, and you're actually feeding the nutrition that you need. Like the minerals that you're giving your plant is going into you. But like
Yes.
the heavy metals, which our products, oh, by the way, we test it for heavy metals, we test it for pathogens. There's no E. coli, there's no salmonella. And so we go above and beyond the US standards. We follow like
Excellent.
European standards and Asian standards of what food producers are required to test for. And
Excellent.
so you're growing something that's safe for your
Mhm.
family to eat, for medicine, for herbs, and so it's something we're very proud of, and we're just getting the word out there, and we're so grateful to get to work with you.
I know. I'm so glad. I'm so excited about it. I've been waiting for this for a while, right? Like it's there's a lot of, regulations and things you have to go through to get this to market, and it's exciting for it to be here. So thank you so much. You're such a great partner. I love all the
Yes.
information.
And
So
thank you for all the
yeah.
education and helping make it easy for people to understand.
Yeah, I think it's important. So people, go check out VermisTerra.com, learn more about vitality and their worm castings, and then go to Planted Places and learn about Pura Terra, and definitely read those blogs. I think that, I learned so much in the
Yeah.
process. It's
If
like
you're
just,
a soil
yeah,
nerd, definitely read our blogs
we
and
are not
our little
nerdy.
videos. I'm proud of it. If you share
I'm
those, I like
kidding.
really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love learning about it. Just because, like you said, you just described why does food, when it's nutritious, taste better, and you just described why, which I think is great. Like
Oh
that is
yeah.
exactly what's happening.
It's true.
So
Yeah.
very good. Okay, excellent. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thanks.
We'll
Bye
talk
bye.
again soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye, everybody.